our next speaker, Rachel Dubois, is a passionate leader with a knack for getting things done and having fun whilst doing it. She is the Agile and product coach at Spotify with a background in marketing and a passion for Agile methodologies. Rachel supports product teams whilst continuously expanding her expertise in innovation and facilitation, which is fueling her moves and passion for this. So please put your hands together, go crazy, and welcome Rachel onto the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So, little message. Please wait after the generic, like Pixelgate. Yeah, there will be a tiny surprise. Anyway, so how do we do product at Spotify? This is a tricky question. So first and foremost, please get the code and give us some feedback. Speakers are there because we care about things. That's why we share, so please. 7% and 3%. Do you have any idea of what those numbers mean? Give it a try. For example. Oh, also I'm French, so my English will not be perfect. Thank you. So those numbers are super big numbers, and when I onboarded Spotify 3 years ago, when you join Spotify, you are taking into what they call intro days. And intro days is like an onboarding 3 days session where you get to meet the founders, where you get to meet the VPs and all the people, having fun doing it. And they shared with us a lot of information. And what I only kept from that was 7% and 3%. 7% is the percentage of the whole humankind, aka all the humans on Earth that use the Spotify on a monthly basis. So that was easy for you to have plenty of you here. And 3% is the numbers of those human people on the globe that pays for that. Ooh. So I was like, how come? What's the odds? It was a tiny company created in Sweden. Sweden is a tiny, tiny country, like just 15 million people, mostly known for IKEA, the meat bullets, ABBA, but not for tech, right? And it was created by two guys that were really good in business, really good in tech. They already succeeded in most of that. They had plenty of money to do that. They were passionate about music. They were playing music, but they didn't know anything at all about the music industry. Music industry that, by the way, really, really shaked it by that time because of the piracy and emails and things like that. The music industry was like, I think they lost like 75%. And those guys who know nothing about the music decided they are going to disrupt it. So how come? So when I joined, and that was one reason for me to join, of course, I started to investigate it, like what it is, what's the secret sauce, right? So I'm an Agile person. So of course, they have a model. I'm sure you heard about it, right? Like the tribe, the squads, the chapters, and the lead songs, right? But when I investigated, when I started working with them on a daily basis, I figured it out that it has little to nothing to do with the success. So what was it? And this is pretty much what I'm going to tell you today. So my name is Rachel. I look like I'm burned by the sun on that one. It's not supposed to render like that. I'm an Agile coach at Spotify. I'm also a product manager there and have been working with them 3 years. Previously, I've worked with plenty of others companies, been in the business for 20 years. But those guys, they really changed my life and changed my mind. So instead of giving you theory and frameworks and models and tips and things for you to follow, I'm going to tell you a story. Let's follow Anna. So real names have been changed, of course. Any resemblance to real life is like coincidence. So Anna, she's a product manager. She works in Corex. Corex is one of our organization teams of teams that take care of customers' users' experience. And she works within a team that is in charge of the signing, just a tiny signing. She's been working with them for quite a long time, I think like 4 or 5 years maybe, with the same bunch of people. And they're quite accustomed to one to another. I'm sorry, I'm having a bit of stress. That's gonna, it happens once in every speak. So as every day, our day starts with a catch up on Slack, because like 4 years ago, Spotify decided to go on a work anywhere policy, so they are spread everywhere in several time zones, several countries. So their go-to is to go to Slacks. And then she invests a bit of time to check on the data. How is the service performing? How much active users do we have? Do we have any other acquisition? New customers? How many did we lost as well? And she has also a special focus because the company just launched the service in new countries in LATAM. So she kind of start her journey with that, and then have a small conversation, informal conversation on Google Meet with the team. Just after that, she connects to the whole hands. So every month, there is a kind of a big together meeting where our founder, Daniel, talk to us directly, meaning directly either through Gmeet or either in person. You can attend that in person as well. It's quite informal, and it goes through several things usually. It goes to reminding us our mission, what it is that we want to do, what's the dent we want to do in the universe. It also reminds us what is the objective for this year, what it is we want to achieve, what it is we want to succeed in. And it gives us that intent with very few clear objectives, and for each of them, he's capable to articulate as well what he wants to see, what he wants to observe as impacts. We use that, the OKRs. That's just one way to frame that, right? It also gives us information regarding the performance. How good are we, or how bad are we? And because it's pre-planning season, it gives us some additional information. The team, they call the D team, has updated what we call the one prior board. The one prior board is a small board when we have like maybe 1 to 10 priorities for the whole company for the 6 months to come, that are really strictly prioritized and strictly ranked from the very top one to the very last one. It's communicated in a very simple way, invisible way. For example, those projects, so all the screenshots are real screenshots, but from the past, so it's okay. So for each of the big projects that we want to prioritize, big initiative that we want to prioritize, we are going to remind ourselves what is the bet we do, what it is that we intend to do, what is the hypothesis that we had, what is the data that we use to make that hypothesis on, how success should look like, and this is it, more or less one pager. This is the information. All hands is also a way for direct communication between employees that also own the company, we have shares, and Daniel. So it's always also the moment in time where we can ask him questions. And sometimes those questions are really tricky. And he's brave enough to answer those ones in a very articulated way, or to tell us, I don't know how to answer. Okay? So usually it's like not a one-way conversation, but really more a dialogue, kind of. So Anna, she's attending all of that, she's taking notes, all of the team is attending that. And after the all hands, the team gathers and try to talk about what does it mean for them. And one of the questions that the team asks themselves is, how can we impact the performance in the company at our own scale? How can we make sure that we increase the numbers of registration? Because not everyone registered to Spotify. So how could we do that? And the first step for them is really to start by, okay, what do we know about it so far? Where do we stand? What are the data, what are the numbers that we have that could tell us how we perform? So quantitative data, of course, but also qualitative data made from previous interviews, previous market research, some benchmark, and so on and so forth. So they start gathering the data all together because they want to analyze it. So analyzing the data takes a bit of time. It's cool we have a data scientist in the team, so helps a lot. Because this is not just Anna doing it, this is like a team sport, right? And after a few days working on the data, the team comes up with some insight about what might be going bad or not that well, let's say. For example, they managed to know that 31K users per day don't manage to finish the process. Sounds big, but remember, 7% of the so it's tiny, in fact. And when they kind of refine that, they kind of find out like 75 of those persons who fell through the form. Inches. Okay? They don't know how to fill in, they don't know how to use it, they don't understand, obviously, the message, the error messages, and also what they discover is that they lack some data, they lack some information. Not all the system provides them with the data they need. So they need to improve that as well. But anyway, by crossing all the data, they kind of feel that there is like 5 usual suspects they could have for that. So data is good, but it's not users. So they need to come to add things on top of that, right? So they need to understand better what it is the people are doing or expecting to do, and why is that they can't do it. So first step, they're going to contact customer support and say, do we have complaints about the signing process? Oh yes, we have. We have tickets, Okay, bring that on. And who are the users that like we lost in the way, and so on. So they gather that data, and what they do is they are going to interview end users directly. So they're going to invite them, most probably in one of our offices in Europe or in the United States. They're going to interview them. They're going to also run some focus group sessions from people that has the problem, but also from people who did not experience that problem, because they want to compare. They want to understand why in some cases people don't get it, and why in some cases feel like, okay, very easy to do. They also are going to do what is like, I really love that, is they are going to record sessions when they are going to give mobile phone to users and ask them, could you please register? Observing, not influencing, just observing and gathering the data. And all the insights they capture, they usually formulated into the jobs to be done framework, so that we have a list of things that people want to do, why do they want to do it, what are the steps they go through doing it. That's cool. Because that's like really helps to connect things. The data, the observations, the voiceover, that helps them to kind of have insight, formulate insights based on the pattern they have observed. And in that very specific case, they found out like 5 things that could be juicy for them to investigate further. For example, finding a username is tricky because they always taken 7% of mankind. So most of the people, they already took Rachel Dubois, for example. So this is like tricky. If I fail on that, I might not go through the process. Some user, like me, for example, they mixed up signing and logging. It happens on every website I go. I always try to log in and end up like, oh no, I'm asked to register. So they kind of focus on those issues as they feel they're quite juicy enough for them to keep investigating on. Next step. Oh, that's the animation part of the slide, like technologic. Next step is to organize a brainstorm work session, not one, the several usually, but all the team, like the engineers, the designer, and the data science, all of them, they work together and they try to figure it out. How can we influence that? So the goal of this session is to see how can we pivot by transforming problems, issues, things that doesn't work, into something that is more positive and constructive, which is opportunities. And to do that, they use quite common framework like school. How might we? How might we do that? How might we solve that? So they kind of start brainstorming a lot. Here, the goal is really much more on quantity of ideas rather than quality of them. So everybody is really encouraged to propose a lot of ideas. Then there will be a second step that is like refining those ideas, sort them, make them more actionable by putting them into a kind of a map, mind map of a tree, so that we can better see all the opportunities that we have, starting from that very specific problem. And then they're going to try to put some data measure in front of all the opportunities to see which branches of that tree might be the more juicy to work on. For example, how might we better support the filling the form by providing like instant guidance? How might we eliminate the feeling from the user that's like, oh, boring, too much field to fill in? Okay. Also, they have seen that during the observation that some people that are really reluctant when you ask them personal information, like your date of birth. Why do you care about that, Spotify? I just want to listen, music, okay? Or phone numbers and things like that. So how can we maybe lower the people we lose because of that by better explaining that? Always shaped by the all my twists. We can't address all the all my twists, so we have prioritized them, and all of that, again, work session all together. So the designer is going to work with some engineers, and with Anna sometimes, into prototyping what an alternative of today's situation, of the today signing funnel could be. So they use Figma because it's very easy. You can have the code, the design, plenty of things. And they prototype for each of the opportunities they have selected in the All My Tweez, a prototype that would help us to experiment on it, okay? It's quite good that, and they do it quite fast, because we use, in Figma, we use visual encoding component or design system that is already integrated in Figma, so that goes very fast and in a very qualitative way. So for example, they do that. They propose also to take away the username question with another way to do that. Also, they propose maybe to use some extra outside link to enable people to identify, for example, from Google, from Facebook, because sometimes the registration stress is lower when you can use something you have already registered and maybe you trust more. So they want to test if that could work. Or also they want to test if they can provide like visual guiding and information regarding when people do like mistakes in filling in the fields, and to give them like more help there. They also want to test what happens if we put directly helping information about why is that we need that info from you and so on. So see, for each of them, they kind of have something that is quite like actionable already. So they do several of that. Again, they go through a work session together, reviewing all the design that have been proposed by the designers and the engineers. The engineers participate heavily on that process, of course. And they pick one or two of those, and they go for coding them. They just pick few of them because we want to be able to ship them at the end of the week. So we want to stay small, right? So this is where the engineering talent comes there. And this is where we want to get things done. So they bet on very, very few options they have identified, maybe 1, 2, max 3. The team design that, codes that, test that. Again, it's very easy because we have the design system that helps us. So we have plenty of behavior code that is already available. So we don't have to recreate everything. We have plenty of components on the shelf for the engineers to code faster. And because we are going to propose several options of one feature, variation, we use all of them using feature flipping or feature toggling to first protect and secure what we do, and also to implement the variation. And they do that quite easily. They check each other every morning, how things goes. They help each other, they document that. And normally, on Thursday, it's good. Why Thursday? Because Thursday is the moment we take a branch and to create the release candidate that will be pushed every Friday. Because we push every Friday. We release every Friday the mobile app, so you have to get ready. Whatever you do, it will always be shipped every Friday, right? We are Monday. The release process that happens during the weekend went well. No bugs, thank God. And the release is available live. So now it's the moment for the team to go through backend and to deactivate the features they want to be used by end users. So for that, we use a platform that it was called ABBA before, because it does A/B testing. But we are commercially launched it into, it's called Confidence. And they're going to, for each of the hypotheses they have, and they have implemented, they're going to configure the test. Usually they go for a few days to 1 week or so of testing. And for each of them, so they test on real life users. Yay! So it might happen that in that group, for example, some of you have a slightly different version of Spotify, and nobody knows. I love that. And for each of those, of course, we have a control panel that is similar to the one we are going to use to test, but is not offered a new feature or the new version of it, right? And they capture that into a kind of a small framework that we have, that is like a bit scientific, like if if we see that change happening, is because we have that effect that is supported by that change that is connected to that data. At the end of the week, or at the end of the campaign, to be more precise, the team has to go through the data and see what hypotheses were validated or not. Because most of the time, we don't observe change, or we don't observe the change we expect. So we need to figure it out, which one are the ones that we want to keep, and which are the ones that we want to maybe cancel, or retrieve, change, or maybe add something. For the very specific that the team consider is good enough to go and be generalized, we have a rollout. Again, it's done through backend, through the confidence, and we have a progressive rollout of the feature, like maybe, I don't know, 0 dot something %, then we observe, and 24 hours after, maybe 2 to 3%, which is already huge, we observed, and so on and so forth. And Anna, she's really gonna keep an eye on that, like maybe Stefan, or he's the data scientist in the team, but also engineers that keep quite an eye on that, because they're responsible of what happened live. So if there's something going wrong there in live production, the engineer and the team are going to be called back. Like, you have to fix it, you have to roll back, you have to comment, for example, on the toggle. So you have to keep an eye on that as a team. But hey, woohoo, success. Some of their experimentation went well. So time to celebrate, job done, going to the weekend, finished? Not at all. No, no, no. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to shout out at Spotify, because we are plenty of us, like today I think we are more than 8,000, heavily spread, heavily autonomous. So we need to make sure that everyone in the company is aware that we have done that campaign because of that issue, because of that hypothesis, and so on and so forth. And this is the results we obtain. So we are going to document that, share that. We share that either to Backstage, which is our internal Teams management portal, or to Workplace. We like to have we have the Facebook, like professional Facebook things to communicate that, but also like more formal into documents we have. And we document that. We say like, yay, we increased the registration by, I don't know, 2% per day. And we also give the samples of the tests we have run, the samples of the population, so that at some point, maybe if another team is doing quite similar stuff on another place in Spotify, so they are aware of that, or maybe, I don't know, your team wants to do that in the future, so they have that for reference. So shout out, yes. Did we impacted logging? Yes, but in a good way, of course. So again, documenting in that. We also document what went wrong, because there is a lot of value. In fact, there is even more value in documenting every branch of the tree that we went through and that ended by a dead end, right? Because that will enable other people not to do that. Saves money and time, like, so, yeah. So we document that. And once they have documented, they can move on to the next problem or a next branch into their tree. Because they're working tiny, you know, they're just working on maybe small, tiny variation. Will that tiny variation alone will be enough for us as a company to achieve our goals? Maybe not. So in fact, what they do, they're going to rinse and repeat that. They have to add several modifications and so on to achieve the goals. To have, I don't know, maybe 50% register more. We have ambitious goals. So let's move slightly to the wrap up. First, key things. I don't know if you paid attention, but we did not talk about at all squads and tribes and chapters and all of that. I even mentioned the label team and not squads, because we got rid of squads. It was like considered like being a bit offensive, like tribe, by the way. So no tribe. And chapters, long gone, up. Okay, so we don't care about that. We have teams. Teams in the Marty Kagan way definition. So we have like product teams that are autonomous, that are empowered, that like manage the end-to-end of one product or one piece of the product. So we have that. I did not mention product owners as well, nor Scrum Masters, because we don't do Scrum. Okay, so we don't need that. Because the teams they do Agile, but each of them, they do their very own source of Agile. So they are totally free to choose whatever ways of working they want. If I observe that, most of them, they have a daily, we'd call a daily stand-up, where they synchronize, because synchronizing every day is good. You know, most of them, they go for a very short iteration. Not because it's mandate, but because at Spotify, time flies super fast. So if you have iteration 3 weeks, it's like decades, no more time, right? So most of them, they would work for a few days, 1 week. Most of them, they have a bit of planning at the beginning. They have a bit of wrap-up at the end. Not everyone does retrospective, for example. Some of them, they do sometimes, but not every time. Yeah, basically, we don't have that much things about all Agile framework. Doesn't mean we are not Agile at all. We are, I think, but we don't need that. What that talk about was more about how do we chase a goal as a team. We chase a goal starting by the data. And based on that data, we're trying to see if there are patterns and what those patterns educated us on the issue. So how do we build insights? And then we try to transform each problem into opportunity, ease, I would rather say. Because for each problem, there is a wide range of opportunities. Hence the green zone there. And it's a model, so like any model, it's wrong, but convenient. So in real life, it's more like that. You have like some opportunities that go very deep, some others that go very wide. And the total scope of everything you could do is really wide. So you can't cover everything. And additionally on that, even for one, the connection between my problem, my goal, and the solution might not be a straight line. We take detours. We take chemin de traverse. I don't know how to spell that. So, and this is really complicated. So that's why I don't remember her name. I will put the name in the lady. We had the senior designer, Chichenko. Yeah. That formalized that, captured that into a framework that she called the thoughtful execution framework. And the idea was really to illustrate how the mental path that we go through when we go into those questions. But please don't see that as a formal framework you have to apply step by step. It's more kind of a reminder that to go there, you might have to go like that. If you type on Google the thoughtful execution framework Spotify, you will find plenty of documentation, heavily documented, and great work. And this is a real life example, just to show you. Between like we have, does that work? Yes. If the goal is to increase consumption of personalized playlists, then to achieve that, there is plenty of data that tells us, that educated us on the context of the problem, the context of the goal. And then for each of them, there is several opportunities that we make captures, we can make several different hypotheses that we want to test. And for just one hypothesis, we can implement several ways to solutionize it that we are going to test. Each time it's tiny variation. It should look familiar, right? Yeah. Because a few years ago, I think it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, Teresa Torres came up with this brilliant book that I really encourage you to read if you haven't already. That's called The Discovery Habit. And in this book, you have what it's called the opportunity solution tree, which looks like quite this one, right? They're quite the same. And this is really powerful, by the way. It's really about how to do continuous discovery. There is another level that we need to add on those three, is the levels of learning, because like shipping is not good enough. Like I said, you have to capture the results of your experimentation and you use it. If you do an experimentation, if you put something into the customer's hands and you don't use that new data to reflect on what you have done, then you have done just half of the way. So we need that to re-inject the learning there and to loop and to iterate. Iterate is proving or disproving that we were right or good. And when we're good is also help us polishing. Because we can't achieve like the one perfect solution first, like we need to tweak better. This framework is part of a design thinking process at Spotify we call the scale. We love analogy with music, of course. And the scale is just a mental model to help us, like remind us the design thinking steps we go through. So usually the design thinking is really much more like 4-step things, like you have to understand the context, then you have to think it through, what does it mean for you, then you build it and you ship it. And in our case, we added the 5th one, which is tweak it. Okay? For each step, you have like a livrable. A deliverable, yeah, something, an output you want to, yeah, you get it. But this is like, again, this is a model. This is like paper perfection. Life is not like that. Life is more something like that. All the budget in animation too. Okay? So depending on what it is you do, depending on your type of customer, depending also on the life cycle of your feature. Is it something that you just launched? Is it something that is more commodity, for example? All of that influences the shape of that process for you. Sometimes you have to heavily invest into understand it, whereas some teams, they overly invest in tweak it. Okay, that's cool. That's the way it works. And so there is no one size fits all solution, and it's not one way neither. In fact, real life is messy. And that's also okay. It doesn't flow like that. In fact, most of the time, you have to go back because you forgot something, you did not interpret it something. You have to, so embrace the messiness of that, okay? But was not really the real takeaway of that. Because it is like, you can find that on internet. Like this is like frameworks and so on. So what are the real takeaways from Spotify success? So I put that picture because I really feel it's like I'm not sure it's the right word in English. It's a kind of a pendulum, like things like that. Balance, yeah. Balancing between like success or chaos, order. You don't know if you go forward, backward. Like it's like, and if I observe people around me in Spotify, people are really like that, always on the edge. So why? Because the previous slide is like how they do that, but why is that they are successful? And the first reason is because they're a very data-driven product company. So I don't know if Janet is in the room. Maybe not. So this morning we had an amazing keynote, right? By Janet. And thanks to Janet, I had to reshuffle the whole presentation. So I'm going to be lazy. I'm just going to share her slide that was really good, because this is it. We are really on the left side. And this is the real magical power of this company. It's truly a product, data-driven product company. Everything that she has put on the slide applies to them. There was also, she asked us to do a small exercise, like you're gonna have 4 minutes before the bells ring, so on. You talk to the person there and ask them what it is that you have to change to move to the left. And I was like, nothing. I have all of them done already. Bit boring for my neighbor. I'm sorry if he's there. So data-driven product company, yes. But the two other ingredients I feel really interesting is the aligned autonomy. So people at Spotify are given an amazing, tremendous amount of autonomy. Nobody's going to tell you what it is you need to do. Nobody. And sometimes it's a bit stressful. When you're on board, when you are new, it's a bit stressful. And that's why also that kind of company is not a fit for everyone neither, right? So aligned autonomy. You will have all the resources you need to do your job, and nobody is going to tell you what is that job to be done. But you will be given a very neat, clear objective that will be repeated and repeated over and over again. Aligned autonomy. And this is the key. This is the why they go so fast. We have 8,000 people. 60% of those are engineers. Bright, talented, creative engineers. In teams that are autonomous, that go as fast as they can. Because it's the personal belief of the founder that speed is everything. You have that. And that implies the third one, trust at scale. Because it means that Daniel, that we saw there, he has to be able to trust every one of the 8,000 people to make the right decisions or to make the right call when they don't do the right decisions. So that's just cool, and to accelerate. And that's not easy to find neither, the trust at scale. We have to trust him, he has to trust us, we have to trust each other's, and to have each other's back. And that's the secret sauce. Move to the left, Janet said. And she gave us tips to do that. Again, being lazy. But I think it's an agile precept, like don't do what you can avoid to do. Huh? So everything that is on that side is really, really, good to do and try to do it. Really good tips. I would add mine on top of that, if I may. Sometimes we can get paralyzed by the idea that we don't have the data or we don't have enough data, okay? That's one of the best reasons not to do it. Okay, start where you are. Data, you can build your way up. You can always do better, so do that. Also ask yourself, what is the smaller things you can do? What is the smaller thing you can add on your product? What is the smallest thing you can tweak on your product and so on? To embrace the product mindset, you don't have to change the whole product, project, whatsoever in your company. You can tweak that. Tweaks are super powerful. The third one is like, don't get trapped into these MVP or perfect first bullshit, because this is going to stuck you. I saw plenty of teams that are stuck into the endless MVPs. They don't polish, they don't go further, they don't challenge themselves, they just stay on their first success and they don't understand why. In the same time, I saw plenty of people that are super stressed of not shipping something that is like production perfect. Don't need that. There is something I learned with them is that most of the end users, they don't see the flows we see. And if you have to invest on something, try communication and transparency. Because it holds everyone, starting by yourself, accountable. And this is what fuels trust. So yeah, do that. Another advice, because I also heard people in the room when they said move left. There was plenty of people that say, yeah, but my company is like too old, too project-oriented, we are suppliers, contractual, whatever. Yeah, that's right, that's right. I wanted to remind you, you don't have to move left. Not every company in the universe needs to be Spotify or any other product company. Because the move left things sometimes creates a lot of stress on people. And I think that in the tech industry, we don't need to add ourselves any additional stress. So yeah, step back a bit, observe, take what you can, and implement what you can, and then maybe it's gonna work. I don't know where am I in timing, good. Do you have any questions? And there is a small surprise at the end, maybe, we'll see.
That was amazing. It's like blueprint. I was wondering, so when you were talking about accessing users, like you speak to users, you get the what, and then you need to get the why. Like, how does Spotify do that? Do you have like a bank of users that you call on, or do you contact them ad hoc, or how do you get to them?
Oh, we have plenty of ways to get to them, and they have plenty of ways to get to us. So, no, I'm joking. So first is like, the first thing that is very actionable is that we have 8,000 Spotifyers that are all like users, heavy users. So 8,000 people, when you have something that breaks, that is like poor quality and so on, you have 8,000 colleagues on your back. So that's quite powerful. Then we have Slack channels. We have public Slack channels that you can contact us and talk directly to people. And when you complain about something, about a feature, about an issue, most of the time you will be escalated. And the people that you will have in front of you, there is great chance that is the developer who developed it. So we also can invite, so we have like, this is very standard, like UX protocols where we can invite people to come to our office when we select them and we interview with them. We do, I don't know, like a focus group. We do like design studio with them and the real users. And sometimes we also buy from third-party companies because sometimes we don't have the data or we don't have the time or we are not in the market. Some markets are more difficult to reach directly. Or for example, when you work on emergent markets, then you would have to buy that and to have access on that. And also, each time there is one Spotifyer, publicly speaking, there's a high chance that I come back to the company with some like wishes and contacts and things like that.
Cool. Any other questions?
At the start of your presentation, you said that the founders changed your life. And I'm curious, what was the change? What?
No, the company changed my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the change?
There is a part that is more personal, so I'm going to keep that one. But like what it changed, it really changed it changed my understanding of Agile, really. I think there is a difference between reading about Agile and really experimenting what it is firsthand in that kind of company So what really amazed me was the speed, not in a bad way, really that. What amazed me also is the level of transparency and the level of feedback. My colleagues I have very high expectations on themselves and the others, and everybody is really willing to give you constructive feedback and very precise, actionable constructive feedback. So a joke aside, when I joined, I got the imposter syndrome stress a lot, and I completely, I'm sorry for the word, I completely fucked up my first workshop. Really, I was like, I felt like I was a beginner, and people came and like I expected them to be really friendly. They could see I was like very nervous and so on, but I was like, Rachel, that was really crap because that. And that was true. That was really true. It was not mean from them. That was really factually true. And the feedback they gave me, I was like, first I was like, oh, my brog. But then I worked on that. I'm way better today than I was like 3 years ago, really. And you work in a team that is super stable. I worked with a team that was there from the very day one, Cork, not because they are obliged to stick with the same persons, because just they enjoy being in this person, they enjoy the domain and so on. And that creates a lot of, I don't know how to describe it. They really changed my life. And the product is so cool.
Everybody using it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, can you grab her afterwards? Yeah, awesome.
I will be there. I will stick until tomorrow and maybe on the boat. I can't escape.
Yeah, so Rachel's going to be around, so if you've got any other questions, feel free to come up afterwards.
You give me some feedback?
Oh, yeah.
Yay.
And give
and
feedback.
then normally it works. Thank you, Paul!
Yeah.